taking. Everyone, well, it's been quite a difficult time since the election, I suspect, but there is some good news here in our community. This community, the Marblehead Democratic Town Committee, and its friends on our over 400-person email list, we had some amazing successes in 2024. Did signatures for our Democratic candidates to be on the ballot. We helped President Biden get on the ballot in New Hampshire. We wrote letters to the editor. We participated in phone banks here in Massachusetts and beyond. We attended caucuses and conventions. We wrote many thousands of postcards. We manned voter hotlines. We knocked doors in Massachusetts and in swing states. And finally, we imagined and executed the most kick-ass outdoor picnic this summer. And then got angry for a day, but then started reading and listening to some really smart people with different perspectives about the future. Not looking back, there'll be time for that when all the votes are counted and the analysis is done, right? If you could see my house, honestly, when I'd hear something interesting, I'd grab a piece of paper and start scribbling. I have scraps of paper everywhere in every room of my house about what went wrong, how to address the real harms of the incoming administration, and how we can help mitigate the harms. And I tried to summarize all those little scraps of paper in my home and share all of the various thoughts floating around my head with you tonight. But then Friday night, I listened to what's called the Secret Podcast on the Bulwark on YouTube. And YouTube is really great because you can see their expressions. And when they're laughing, you can laugh with them. And those who don't know about it, the Bulwark was started by some never Trump Republicans, believe it or not. The publisher is Sarah Longwell. And I'm going to share a clip from this subscriber-only podcast because it really captures how I'm feeling right now. It's a little long, it's 11 minutes long, and I apologize if it's too long for you to listen to, but I really think you'll find it worthwhile, okay? So I hope it's okay that I'm sharing. Okay, got a couple more people in the waiting room. Yeah, is on the top in this JBL.
It's an alarming response, and so then to read 6 hours later, processing. So you can turn up the volume.
Your volume's bad.
We can't hear him.
Can't hear it. Making a case then, thanks to the wisdom of Pope John Paul II and Vince McMahon, why we cannot let the fears that we all have, either others or
And the guys are all these like, and the
I did yesterday.
here we go.
Because it's important actually to set the table with the background. Sarah from Europe sent a open-ended text to me, a very sweet text to show them this is the show. We're actually friends. It's like, how are you guys doing? How you doing? And I gave kind of like a, so a little bit, one day at a time, blah, 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 kind of mixed reactions. I'm doing a little better than I thought. There's hard moments. JBL replies with like, I cannot sleep in the night
The slough of despise.
I'm in the slough. I'm so scared.
Make it louder.
Family, and I'm probably
Can hear.
like it was.
No, Kathy, I think they can call it up on their own.
It's like what's it like? then to read 36 hours later a newsletter, and then processing things that are keeping him up at night, listing the things he's scared about externally and internally, and then kind of making a case then, thanks to the wisdom of Pope John Paul II and Vince McMahon, of why not let fears that we all have, or either others or in some cases ourselves, that we cannot let them consume us. And you kind of wrapped it all together. Sort of.
So Sarah, are you more of a Pope John? You really are Pope John Paul. You're not Vince.
That's right. I am a Pope John Paul. I read him as a Sarah. That piece and I read it. It was funny when I got it, when I came from France, I immediately read it, which is unusual. But I read it.
Sitting on a plane.
No, it was yesterday. I was back. And I was, because I was so caught off guard by the subject, knowing you and where you've been emotionally. And I had been wanting to write a version of this piece. It's been in my head.
For the Atlantic.
I am watching with a great deal of fear. And one of the things that I followed kind of closely while I was gone was the Mika and Joe sojourn to Mar-a-Lago. And I want to unpack that for 1 second in this context of fear, because there was some reporting around it that they went down there in part concerned about being targeted by Donald Trump. And I think that it is really important that people understand that this menace from Trump hangs over the entire MAGA enterprise, right? Like from the way that they have intimidated lawmakers, from when the people show up at the airports and scream down the lawmakers, to the way that the rallies are held, to the bullying of trans people, like so much of this stuff, to the way they're going to round up, so much of it is about making, right? And that's why they talked about things like military tribunals for Liz Cheney and the retribution. He talked about retribution for people, and every talk about that uneasy sense that often about like, man, will they come for me? And there's a lot of gallows humor. George and I do it on our thing about, and you mentioned this, JBL, about like, oh, we'll see you in Guantanamo and all this stuff. But like, Trump is the president now. And you can see it across a ton of institutions where people like, they come in for me, come in for their tax status, or they come in personally, like what is going to happen? And I've been disappointed by a lot of this. And I was disappointed in let me just take the Joe and Mika example just really clearly. So I go on that show a lot. It's actually one of the shows that I still new shows that I like watch and think like they often have interesting guests and free-flowing conversations. But the idea that they are journalists and they're going to be reporting on Donald Trump and that's why they need is absolute as a premise. They are commentators, and they're commentators who have spent the last many years talking exactly like we do, which is like, it's one of the few shows where they mistakes, right? To the point of like, where this is the reason people talk about TDS, right? Is that like, they were very much in like I go on the show and we talk about like the insane things that Donald Trump might do, how scary it is, how authoritarian it is. They use the language of Trump being beyond the pale, of being an authoritarian. And when you do that, and then you go to him with a hand extended, it is like these social conservatives we were talking about at the top of the hour previously, or on the other show, right? Where they like, not only do they not care about sexual morality, which they talked about for so long, but now they're happy with people like a whole, like sexual assaulters, right? And they're fine with it. What you feel like when you never meant it. You never meant any of the things you said, and it makes me, it creeping nihilism, like kind of takes over you. Like, oh wait, we were on the same side about this. We talked about this, and the Joe and Mika thing feels eerily familiar to those of us who were never Trump, and then watched everybody one after the other make peace with it. Who all these Republicans were saying the same thing that we were in 2016 and 2015. Suddenly change their mind. And still today, like, who do I disdain the most? It's people like Scott Jennings who were with us and then changed because they wanted to be on Trump's side. And the fear is the fear that is causing people to turtle right? To like suck in, to be like, don't notice me, don't see me. And man, should people resist that urge? That is the wrong way to approach this moment. The way you approach this moment is to say, a bunch of this stuff matters to me. I was right the whole time. The fact that the American people, for whatever reason, that a very slim majority of them chose to return this guy to power.
Plurality. Very
It's an
slim
indictment on
plurality.
them. It's an indictment on them and not on us. Because this is a clear right from wrong situation. And like, I will, none of us should stop saying that in this moment. I will just tell you, it cannot be that the way that we react to this is to say, please don't notice me, please don't come for me, whatever. That is, you're doing it wrong. That's what the Washington Post did. That's what that pre-surrender was. It's how the authoritarians win, is they make it such a liability to speak out. And I just, yeah.
I want to add one thing to that, because I agree with that, and I think that maybe this will resonate, or certainly some, because of my life. Look, everybody should do, wrong with making sure your passport's up to date or whatever, using finddeleteme.com to help, monitor your online presence. I've received some texts from people that are like way down the list from Joe and Mika. I think Joe and Mika are way down the list. But their fear. And like everybody, that's fine. Fear is legitimate. Worry is legitimate. And I think that in the moment though, like there's a lot of unknown. We don't exactly know whether this will be menacing venge monster Trump or whether it will be
Angry Twitter Trump.
Yeah. I just want to golf and vent on Twitter. And I've already won kind of because I got back in and I'm not going to jail now. And like, I'm gonna be on truth, but like not actually follow anything up. You don't know. And that's a sliding scale. It could be anywhere in between. And I think that because got off the trans conversation, I think that there are trans folks, particularly trans younger people that I have legitimate concerns. And I think that is totally legitimate and thinking about how to deal with that and what kind of states they're in and what their laws are. It's unfortunate that that's a real thing. I think that if you are a dreamer right now or you're an asylee, like I think that there are very legitimate concerns. If you have people like that in your life, one of my friends is a nanny recently and like, talk to a lawyer, like get some ducks in the row now. I think that is very legitimate. But we cannot let like fears that are exaggerated or irrational or like not really fully rational like consume us and impact
Chill us.
actions chill us and impact our actions. Yeah, and like that is really where I thought that the newsletter was good and everything that you're saying is right, Sarah, and I've been trying to say this time. Like we're gonna live our lives, like we're gonna still live our lives and like see what this fucker decides to do and not like change the way we live our lives and let it ruin the things about our lives that are good, or let him take those from us voluntarily. Like don't give him that. Like don't give him things that are meaningful and important to you voluntarily, including your mental health and
the
your
power
happiness.
of our voices. And
Yeah,
the power
or
of
your, and your
voice.
voices. Yeah, and so like I just it is not the worst case scenario is that bad, but it is not that bad now, and we should and we cannot victory that he hasn't had or that he hasn't taken from us yet. And I think that's really important, no matter whether it's just somebody that is small fish that has concerns because of the laws in their states. They live in red state. I hear from people again about this, all the way up to like other commentators. I don't know. Like I get kind of, I don't like the gallows humor at MSNBC. Like when people are like they're coming for us, I'm like, not really, actually. You listen. We played the Pam Bondi clip on the other podcast. Like people, if you prosecuted Trump or you investigated Trump, yeah, you should get your ducks in a row and you should get lawyers.
Jack Smith
Yeah,
would not want to be Jack Smith.
that is the first circle, all right? And all the rest of us can watch what happens there. And hopefully those people can support those people and they'll
We
be
can support
strong.
those people.
Yeah, and the rule of law will control, because by the way, these guys, there aren't gulags. They're still gonna have to go to grand juries and and all this stuff, right? Like there are a lot of steps between, even if the worst thing in your imagination comes, there's a million steps between now and then. we can speak out against them and watch them and act judiciously.
Thing.
Where'd you quit moaning and groaning and get to work?
You said, Kip, stop groaning and moaning and get to work. Wow, that was loud. I'll just step back because I think it's important for people to hear. And Steve, that's why I like this clip. I felt the same way. And I think there's a lot of fear and that's why I wanted to share it. Okay. We get into our discussion groups. I wanted to make an announcement. Our members, our MDTC members know this, and tonight will be my last meeting as chair. I'm stepping down to make way for new energy and new leadership. During our business meeting, we'll talk more about the committee's plan for transition. But now let's talk about the fun part of our meeting. In the email invite to this meeting, I shared a Timothy Snyder article that was forwarded to me, and some of you have shared it with others.
Kathy, are you starting to explain the program?
I was gonna read a little bit.
Can you pause for a minute? So Kathy just mentioned that like it was nothing, that she was stepping.
Right.
On behalf of the MDTC, I don't know where the camera is, but if you're on mute, this is from everyone. Thank you for courage, compassion, fire, and Kelly. Put on it down.
I take bets of whether it'll be alive in a year.
Excellent. I just said Robert. You did.
Article that was forwarded with the meeting invite. But I think maybe the important part is, I'll read just the one important part. And it goes like this. There is a history of the modern democratic state. There's also a history of engineered regime change and deliberate state destruction. In both histories, 5 key zones are health, law, administration, defense, intelligence. 5. These people, meaning Trump's appointment to head those areas, power over these areas of life can make America impossible to sustain. And then he finishes his post by saying, both inside and outside Congress, there will have to be simple defiance joined with a rhetoric of a better America. And at moments, at least, there will also have to be alliances among Americans who, although they differ on other matters, would like to see their country endure. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to break down into groups. And we'll probably break down, I think, into groups of 5, because we've got, looks like 16 people on a Zoom. And, oh boy, how many here? Looks like maybe 15 or 20. We'll break down into groups of 5, and each group will be assigned one of these 5 areas of importance. And for 20 minutes, well, first, and I'll describe how you should be organized, but for 5 minutes, you'll talk about like some of the harms, although Jeannie prepared these wonderful cheat sheets for you about some of the concerns that might arise because of the folks that are running these different areas. but then talk about maybe some of the mitigation that could happen to these harms. And then we'll come back together and maybe think about the top 3 before we break, maybe in the last 5 minutes of the 20 minutes that you're talking amongst each other, identify the top 3 mitigation plans that we might be able to do to offset some of these harms, okay? And if it doesn't make sense, Jeannie will be bouncing around in here. I'll be bouncing around the breakout rooms on Zoom. And I think that's it. Do you have anything to add? Want to say anything? You should come here.
Maybe you talk to okay. Might be worthwhile. There's so many icons on the screen.
Well, that's easy to say.
There you go.
If you can hear me, so the instructions, which will be hand out, and there's a link to this, I think, in the chat. So the objective is you're going to have 20 minutes and you're going to be able to just pick a topic under that framework, and it'll make more sense when you see the framework. So you can talk about the things that you're worried about, the things that we think are going to be harmful, and then ways that we can throw sand in those gears, mitigate, help people who will be harmed by those harms, anything that fits in that area, with the intention that after all of our breakout groups share back their top 3 or 4, we will have 10 or 12 or 15 ideas that will be the formation of the 2025 agenda of action, so that we'll be able to think about what we can do and where we can move forward. I put an example here, totally made up, just spinning out things that we could do if we were looking at health. What would be some ways that we could address that? Under one of the other topics, there's under legal, there's going to be immigration, and I'm going to give us all a win because literally 10 minutes after I finished the slide, a woman I know from the Institute for Immigration in New England said, "Hey, we're doing a clothing drive for our new immigrants. Do you think that people could help?" So we already have one in the win column because anybody who takes that topic, we're going to organize that. I'm going to do it. You can bring things to my house. So it could be a range from broad-based things to very specific things. And the goal is get in conversation, have a chance to talk about the things we're worried about, come up with some ideas, we'll share them back, and that will be basically the feeder to how we get through the front end of 2025. Okay, and then I go back here.
One of the things I didn't describe. Okay.
This is what I'm going to hand out and what people can click on. So we thought it would be easier in this sort of cabinet of horrors and menu of disaster to just be able to be like, let's just pick this one. Like, so you could just scan it, whatever topic you get under the framework from Tim Snyder. But to be honest, if you got a bee in your bonnet that's not on this list and you have ideas you want to talk about, have at it. Like, the point is to get to some good ideas, not to let the tool take over the evening. And we just put some unpleasant little shock names down at the bottom to remind you where some of the pain is going to come from. And as Kathy mentioned in here, you're going to need 3 roles: a timekeeper, a note taker, a reporter. One person who's superstar could do all of those roles. 2 people, you could split it. It doesn't matter. It's just that we want you to keep track of time. We want you to take enough notes so that when it's time to share out, somebody's like, here's our 3 good ideas. Questions? Anybody online want to have a question? Any questions from folks online? So I'm gonna let Kathy do the spin out magic for the Zoomers. And if we want to, honestly, just grab a few friends and get in a group of 4 or 5 and like pick a corner of the room. I think that's easier. Yeah, we were gonna count up. Like,
There's 2 of us, that'll make 5.
we are all tired. We are straight out here. And then I'm gonna,
that Jeannie just showed, I'm going to put it in chat. And after the group in the room stops making noise, I'm going to do the breakout rooms. And it looks like there are, 19. So maybe we'll have 4 breakout rooms. So 4 breakout rooms of 5. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is
So this one, because I gave you the flyer, this one, you're gonna take legal, and I've already given you an extra jump up, because there are 2 groups I work with locally on immigration. It's your decision, so you would just know whoever that you're taking, circle legal, and then. You can literally do anything in here or anything else, these are all.
transition. Ignore that PowerPoint.
Coming to this group here.
PowerPoint that you would, in the Zoom, you'd care to pay attention to.
Just many awful things, Kathy, and I thought of the kid, talk about, but you don't. So under legal action, something else, but that stay under the hat.
So I'm going to create the breakout rooms. And I'm going to create, let's see, 5. Oh, no, there's only 12. Oh, there were some scaredy cats in Zoom.
And then so Kathy sent it an email, he has a baby on a drive to, and he wrote a letter.
Okay, all right.
So get rid of. You guys are gonna do health?
Okay.
All right, if you.
Is there anything that?
Whoever
yeah,
is
health-
your.
Yeah, I need
Right.
somebody. who wants-
Administration.
KCA, they have.
Bountiful, health.
And I think we have to pick one of those, right?
Prompt discussions, like, just the, we want to utilize. There's some sort of administrative state that.
To tear it down.
Have at it, so this is really just.
Look around, you know,
Along.
Yeah.
And it's gonna kind of bring things in. It's just Mr. It's me behind here is also the latest of all the worst. So, yes, and all
together.
here so that you can just
For me to.
grab a nasty topic and have at it and not lose time
Like
being like paralyzed by the otherwise. Whatever you want, but we're gonna, these folks report out first. So our Zoom pals are back and they're gonna report out first. So we get where it's at, Mike, but we're gonna start to pay attention.
I wanna go to.
Conversations.
Oh, it was different? Can you guys on Zoom hear me?
Yes, we can.
Breakout room 1, which I think had just 3 people in it. I think it was Ellen maybe and Joan, is that right?
My sister and I, so it's really 4 people.
Their attention is free, because they have the answer to save America.
All right.
Zoom team 1 has the answers to save America. All right, so how did the discussion go? And by the time I realized I hadn't assigned you a topic, it was halfway through the discussion. So what topic did you guys choose?
So I'm the speaker for our group, and you had sent us intelligence, so we went with that. We were debating what we were going to talk about, so we decided to focus on intelligence at your request. I think like at the beginning, we kind of had a conversation about how what was like sort of striking in terms of being missing is education, particularly with the Department of Education being sort of on the chopping block. And so I'm going to kind of maybe circle back around to that because that kind of came up a couple of times, even in talking about something like intelligence. Can everybody hear me? Were we good?
You're definitely loud.
Okay.
Too loud.
Awesome.
And she wrote.
Now you're frozen. Someone else in the group maybe take over?
Where'd she go?
Michelle froze.
We can say something. Linda and I are here, and we did talk about, we were concerned about our allies overseas, seeing this as like in a macro vision and not realizing that not all the country wants this, and letting them know that we are still with them, and also just using our local congressman, Mr. Creighton and Jenny Armini and everybody who are very concerned, and they're very sincere people. They really want to help, and I think that if we let them know how much we want to move the wave in the opposite direction, we just feel like if we can move the wave in a different direction and let the world and each other know that we are going to do something about this, and we can do something at the state level, because they are concerned about, their whole thing is state rights. And so that we feel like in Massachusetts, we could possibly be a template if we do something to at least protect our rights here. And then the other states might take that as a nod in the right direction. So that's that's basically what we talked about. We talked about just, and education, like having more education, like reaching out more. She was saying that she's a teacher at Salem State, and that we felt like more education to counteract the disinformation and the lies, and just to see if we can help people see what's going on actually happening. And also, we feel like at some point the people who voted for him, will see that the things he promised aren't true, and we can sort of work towards a more positive direction. But really, just letting the world and each other know at a state level that we can do something about it here, and possibly be a template to stand up against the federal movement. And then in other states will feel it's a template for them to follow as well. So really working with our local officials to do that. And also the information, the education, we felt like it was just very important to counter the mentality of sort of the cult-like mentality of whatever he says is okay. So we feel like we need to work on the information and education piece.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, team. Team breakout room team 1. How about breakout room team 2?
Hi,
We have a-
I'm going to speak for team 2. We took on legal and we focused specifically on immigration. So we came up with 5 different bullet points on actions we could take here in Marblehead. The first one is to find and list immigration resources on the town website. That would include constitutional protections, identification and contact information for groups like the ACLU, MIRA, ECHO. Brennan Center was another one that was mentioned. So all that would be, you know, work that we could do on the town website. We could also help asylum seekers directly. And then we got to like, might we discover them? And so enlisting the churches for outreach to undocumented immigrants. We would maybe be able to discover who from the different churches in town would be the right contact, and then learn how we might be able to help the immigrants within their parishes. Then moving on, we also discussed fundraising for groups working for fair treatment of immigrants, you know, based upon that list, ACLU, et cetera, above. And then finally, we had an idea to gather educational materials around being an asylum city and reaching out to the town select board about becoming an asylum city. So that's really what we discussed in our group.
And
Immigration attorney for Catholic Charities.
You gotta come up because they can't hear you.
Okay.
You don't speak in the.
Can
we? Just.
So-
see, you have to come like over here.
I'm an attorney for Catholic Charities in Boston. And right now, and I'm also on the board of trustees at the House of Seven Gables. And tomorrow at 3:30, we're doing a ribbon cutting for our immigration clinic through the Seven Gables. And they just applied for USCIS accreditation. So they're going to be doing not only the typical ESL classes, citizenship classes, computer classes, but they're going to start being active and filling out applications and things like that. They got an actual place now. They have a spot in Salem where immigrants can actually show up, be with other immigrants. And I know myself, with my job, my asylum clients is an active group in Burlington, but there's a power group and it's through churches, just like you mentioned. But there are a lot of groups out there and I can, you know, try to get some contacts for you. But I know with my own clients, especially, well, the Afghan asylum clients, they were incredible as far as just getting them to my office to have a meeting or going on the tee with them or going to their house and handing a document and just saying, sign here. Like there's so many things you can do if you're not an attorney or a paralegal. There's so much out there, but you now have one spot right at the Seven Gables in Salem where you can get really involved. And again, tomorrow's the ribbon cutting at 3:30. If anybody's interested, let me know.
Thank you so much. The Gables Settlement Association did come up, but I wasn't able to see or like who was just talking then. I'm sorry, I don't know, have your name.
Diane Slavitt Bayless. She's one of our members, and I know
Thank you.
Jeannie's going to distribute some information. She's very involved in another organization as well later.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to add from the immigration part, and Diane and I have actually planned to never yet connect because I work as a clerical intern supporting MIRA Coalition, where I know Diane has also done some work. So I put in the materials. They are doing some amazing things with, we volunteered at TPS, which is the Temporary Protection Status Clinics. They have new citizen clinics. So they do a lot of things, and I can definitely be a conduit. And I know, Diane, you work with them as well for things that are upcoming, and they're going to have a big immigrant rights day they do every March at the State House. The other group I work with is the Institute, the Immigration Institute of International Institute of New England. They need a better name. That's the one that are doing the clothing drive. The other thing that they do, and we have done volunteers, they'll do wholesale apartment setups once they get a refugee family. And they often, this will be in Haverhill, Drake, we'll get needs to have people that want to do everything from donate supplies. We recently took mattresses and coffee pots, and we've done grocery shops. And my contact there said that they're expecting a host of new families to be needing to be housed in December and January. And they kind of rally very quickly. These are very thinly resourced volunteer organizations that work very hard. And I'll get a text and they'll say, we're going to send out a sign up link and we need a whole team to put an apartment together. We just got the lease signed. They're going to move in this weekend. So you can do everything from grocery shop for fill the pantry to go and be part of a team that sets the beds up, sets the apartment up. And there's no shortage of ways to help there. So we can add that to the immigration support list.
Thank you. So I'm going to put a document into the chat. I put it into the chat in our group, but I'm not sure if it was shared more broadly. But if anybody has any links, I would love to have you just add it right into that Google Doc and we could gather our information there. I did find the press release for the Gable Settlement Association ribbon cutting tomorrow. So thanks for that information too.
Had the mirror. I'll make sure before the end of the meeting, I put that in there. Okay, so now we've got to go around. I don't know, we didn't assign numbers to groups.
People may be trying to rejoin Catholic meeting rooms back. If you go to, people may have gotten bounced out.
Okay. Admit all. Okay, here we go. How about, I don't know how we, how about the group that was over here? Come up and speak.
I'm so grateful. Thanks, Leslie.
Groups like I wanted, it would be easier.
Had health and we kept getting off the track. It was challenging. So I kind of had general themes. And I think I've already heard somebody say this. One would be around truth. If you could take every aspect of health and every aspect on your list and getting truths out there. And not just truths, but also, yes, warnings. I mean, let people know what's coming. So communication was a big one for us, and communicating truths. And we talked a little bit, you could do it online, you could do it social media. There are a lot of different ways it could be done. Even bombarding social media with truths. And I heard that today from Heather Cock Richardson, to kind of keep truths out there, because that's one of the big problems. Letting people know areas that are going to where they're going to get hurt specifically, and get truths out there. You know, this is what's coming. Even communicating 2025, Project 2025. My experience, nobody I know that voted for Trump knew about Project 2025. And then there's always truths around reproductive rights and ongoing, Valenti, I guess she has her newsletter, but getting those truths out about what's happening. So that's our theme.
Also, specifically, we wanted to go for the Veterans Administration thing
That
and
fits under it,
oh, okay.
right?
Just-
like if they're gonna outsource the Veterans Administration, what are the truths? What's gonna happen to you? Yeah, you could say it about every item
ADA.
in terms of,
ADA
what
too.
does it mean to you?
Thanks.
But these were all whats, none of them were hows. So I think the challenge is how we did this.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you, Leslie.
Take from Heather Cox Richardson's newsletter and just copy it onto your, is that a thing? Can you do that? Or is that like?
Repost her. Oh, yeah, you can just repost, you could quote her.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
put it
she
out on.
wants you to do that. Okay.
Folks on Zoom, there's a side discussion going on, but there's you know, what's been discussed is what needs to be done. What's not so clear is how, how do you get these truths out, right? All right. How about the group that was in the back on the, my right, your left? Kathy.
Never talked on a microphone before. So I'm gonna look really elegant doing this. And I apologize for the hat. I have no idea what's going on under here right now. So that's why it's staying on my head.
Very closing.
I probably didn't. Go ahead, keep going. and
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
There they are. So our group covered defense, and we first acknowledged the threat of World War III and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. And from there, we went into more micro concerns. One of them being that Trump could use the military against both citizens and undocumented peoples, that he could cut off federal aid to states that do not comply with his orders, the turnover and the vulnerability of his appointees, and how they could be perhaps compromised by their own behaviors based on Putin's wide reach. We talked about nuclear submarines and how they will be under
It must be a wild or loose.
the rule of one corrupt individual, and how we will need to find ways to protect NATO, and largely how to safeguard the rule of law. Underneath our actions, we are asking what can be done during a lame duck session. How do we focus our power and pressure to influence other members of Congress outside of Massachusetts who may be in the pro-Ukraine majority in the House? We want to show support for their stance and communicate that they need to continue to hold that line. We need to understand the legislative policies that may prevent our withdrawal from NATO and know more about Marco Rubio's support in the past of NATO. And finally, we need to put pressure on the current nominee for the Secretary of Defense and how easily compromisable he is based on his past behaviors, and do what we can to prevent that nomination from being confirmed.
Maybe Senate Republicans will get a spine, right? How about in the front here, in the front, my left, your right?
We also covered legal and focused on immigration. So I won't, go through some of the things that have already been mentioned. But we did talk about the economic impact that deportations and taking immigrants out of the fields in the nursing homes and construction. And we don't believe that people really realize the significant impact that these kinds of deportations and actions could potentially have. So keeping an eye on that messaging, that making sure that people are aware. And we think that like corporations and like agribusiness, the pharmaceutical industry, all of these are corporations that are much more powerful than us, are going to have to step up and make sure that the people that really get the whole picture and put pressure on the administration because they're in the best position to do that. And we also talked about supporting building coalitions here at home with and pressuring, businesses, corporations that are in like Massachusetts. We certainly a big pharma state and receives millions and billions of dollars from the government for research and science and all. And I think, as people start to become aware that how anti-science, this administration is, that it'll be more than just, worrying about pandemics coming back and people not being vaccinated, but, looking ahead to cancer research and Alzheimer's research. And certainly that affects everybody and touches everybody's lives. And so some of those people that have been so enthusiastic for Trump may, start now that they are getting what they want, they might, also be able to think twice and put some pressure. So building coalitions, that was huge. I think something that we can do, supporting organizations like MIRA, Catholic Charities, the Ryan Center, all those places where we can actually, feel our impact and see our impact. I think that helps us, emotionally, mentally, as well as the people that we're helping so that we feel like we're doing something. And the other thing that we talked about, when we think about like, what are those legal areas particularly, that in 4 years, we're not going to be able to come back from as a democracy. Like in 4 years, like the immigration laws, if we're able to turn things around, we can do something about that. We can have, we can change, undo maybe some of the harm that's been done. But what are those areas that are going to be very hard to undo? And certainly I think the one area that we talked about was the weaponization of justice, that's going to be really something that's very scary and we need to pay attention to and certainly call that out. And I think it's yet to be seen, what opportunities are going to be for that and what the need's going to be. I think that's a kind of a wait and see, but I think we have to be prepared to call that out, and be extremely vocal and push back on that as much as anything. Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Danielle. I'm a high school teacher, so I usually have less than like 2 minutes to make my point. So I'm going to try to keep this really brief as the last one. Our group was administration. So we have our group right there in the back. And I was new and so was another couple. So that was really fun to see some new folks. We talked a little bit about efficiency committee, the revenge agenda, Project 2025, media suppression, and appointments. We had a few different thoughts and ideas. I think we shared a lot of commonalities amongst the other groups. Things we thought about is how do we help our state reps? How do we discredit untrue sources like Fox? We talked about the power of the Women's March and is there a possibility to do more organizing and do more marches? We also talked about engaging in community conversations, how people don't really care what you have to say unless they know you. And we feel like people are a little bit numb to what they've been hearing because they've been hearing it for so long. So how could we wake people up and create more people to be part of the system? Do we have community conversations at breweries? Do we have potluck dinners? Do we encourage intergenerational dinners, or do we have maybe certain groups like we target college students? At the high school, I don't believe we have a Young Democrats group. Oh, we do? Oh, okay. So then maybe there's a way to spotlight them more, because those 16-year-olds are going to be 18-year-olds and they'll be voters. We talked about kind of that 2 years and planning ahead. We want to encourage our reps to caucus with Republicans from other states. We also want to make sure that we're supporting our reps well. Team, did I miss some things? Things you want to add?
That's good.
I'll just move to Florida and try to flood the system there. So thank you.
Kind of quasi official back in the high school.
Hope that was productive, and I hope
Good job.
a few things and feel a little bit better, and hopefully we've got some ideas to put our energy into counteracting some of this awfulness that we're hearing about. And again, as Tim Miller said, we don't really know what's going to happen.